Hey guys, this is Killrob speaking, and in today's little dev update we are going to talk about the upcoming big update and the current status of development. So you have been receiving quite a few patches recently in recent weeks, and those are now coming to an end with just bug fixes as we are moving on to developing the next big update. But we are going to do it in the following way, and that is, right now we have forked the builds and the artists on the team are going to continue to work on fixtures and other such content, and that will be made available in patches that come out every 1.5 or 2 weeks to the current version, to the current latest big update, so that you will be receiving a little bit of content here and there and some updated translations as well. And the other portion of the team is working on primarily implementing the new features of the next big update. And what is that about, you ask? Well, it is all about preparing the car designer for the Light Campaign V3, the much improved Light Campaign version, which we are planning to implement right thereafter. Part of that is to implement the car building AI, just as you have seen here with the engine building AI that already works. When you head over here and you have the generator, and then you can select a demographic and then a year and generate an engine. And this generator is now hooked up with the car AI generator, and that will be used to dynamically generate your competitors later on. But for the next big update, there will be a static car database built out of cars that the AI has built. Previously, these cars have been made, the ones currently in the game, which are now outdated and, well, the markets are imbalanced because of that. They have all been built by the beta testers, I think around 2,000 cars, so that's a massive undertaking and one which we don't want to repeat. So next up is the car AI generator. In order to make the AI work properly, we have to change how engine bay bounds are working. Currently, the game looks at the full engine size, and from that determines what fits into a car and what doesn't. So currently, these arrows you are seeing for the size limitations, as in these here, they are based on the overall engine size minus the intakes, and that can be a little confusing, and it incorporates many 3D assets which don't necessarily have to be designed the way we have modeled them. And that is probably the biggest issue with the current system when it comes to balance. And we are going to change the system such that only block size and head size matters, but then the rest is calculated as a size factor. So you will be able to fit into the cars anything that fits into the size box for the head and the block, but then you have the remaining size for the engine bay filled up by this size factor, and that will incur a lot of other penalties if you cramp it too much. Basically just like in reality, like service costs go up and things if you have it too crammed. So basically all the game mechanics that currently are in the game, or supposed to be in the game, will be in this changed version as well. But what changes dramatically is how easy it is for the AI to actually calculate things. Because main problem is the AI doesn't have the luxury of actually loading in these 3D assets. That would take an immense amount of time, and that is the only way you can determine the size if you actually want to do it in this way with all the components on it. If we instead only have 2 components, the block and the head, then we can have a lookup table for what the sizes are at various settings. The good news here is that we have been working on the car AI for some time already, and it's already able to build full cars with an engine input in there and somewhat tuned already as well. The only problems remaining are suspension, which I'm going to get to a little later in this video, and the wheels, but the brakes already work. The tuning is probably better than most players are doing, but yes, so we are on a good way to getting the car AI implemented reasonably soon. So once the engine size calculations have been redone and put into the game, we can embark on the big next thing, and that will be to revamp the car designer with loads and loads of changes. And they are of course not to be shown here in game because I don't have them in game yet, but rather I'm going to show you outside of the game what is planned and just quickly run through the list of those changes, supposed changes. And of course you can then comment down below this video of what your thoughts are on all these things. Okay, let's get into that. Spreadsheet time, my favorite time. Not really. Alright, here we are. Yes, this is quite a list of balance changes that we are considering or already have worked on to some degree. And let's just go through this somewhat unsorted list and take a look at what is in there. Alright, first item, cost benefit of diffs. That seems to be somewhat off at the moment, where open diffs basically are the way to go unless you're going really high tech into sports or comfort. And that doesn't seem to be the optimal balance there really. So maybe some changes to grip calculations and so on, so that they make a bit more sense in general. Then we have a controversial issue, which is the 3-door versus 5-door issue as an effect on prestige for the cars. That has been a little bugbear of mine for quite some time, and I think the solution here is to just remove the prestige modifier for the number of doors and yeah, just have them affect utility and practicality as they really should. MPFI and direct injection. They are currently getting a drivability penalty for extremely high throttle responses, which really shouldn't happen because you have an ECU that regulates it depending on how you're currently driving. So you won't be breaking your neck if you're driving a somewhat decently tuned ECU. And yeah, so this should really go. So if you have selected MPFI or DI, then for drivability it always should select the correct, let's say, or for comfort as well, the correct throttle response instead of the super amped up one you can get when you drive aggressively. Then we have the issue of drive axle and transverse versus longitudinal mounting of the engine, which should cut into cabin space, so that you get a slight comfort penalty for cars that have the drive axle run beneath the car, or indeed have a longitudinally mounted engine, which is kind of in automation a front mid setup, really. So yeah, that should probably reduce slightly the amount of passenger space you have. Then we have sport interior. Yes, very quick fix to make indeed. Currently it's quite underpowered, and I think I know why that is from playing it so much. It is because it gets such a bad comfort rating. And also we can make it slightly lighter so that it better fits the theme. So 10% lighter and make it comfort average rating, just like the premium package. Or is the premium higher? I think the currently the sportiness interior is low, which would make it just as standard, I think, standard interior. But anyway, so amp up the comfort level and make it 10% lighter, and I think it's right where it should be. Then we have the issue for everyone who has played the Light campaign. Yeah, you probably have noticed that it's very easy to make very high-end, or very cheap to make very high-end cars in the comforts and or the prestigious segments of the markets, and that is probably because the higher up interior and entertainment packages don't really cost that much extra. Oh yes, the next one is interesting and will change how the game plays overall drastically. And that is the seats and how they affect practicality, but also in general the demographics. So we have made up a list of, for each demographic, how many seats they generally want. For instance, a family car doesn't want to have less than 4 seats. If it is outside the range, if your car has 2 seats and the family demographic looks at your car, then it will go like, oh damn, this doesn't have enough seats, minus 20% desirability straight up. And that is how we're going to deal with that. So you will have more segregated demographics, so to say. If you're building specialized cars, you will pay for that, in that not many other demographics will want to take a proper look at it. It's basically like trying to sell non-convertible cars in the convertible category. That's about the difference you would see. Like, it is possible, definitely possible, but yeah, you're much better off giving them what they actually want. We might also implement a 2+2 seat option, maybe, if that makes sense, if we can make it work in a reasonable fashion. Then we have solid axle. Yeah, solid axle should give a grip bonus to acceleration. And that is more so for coil, because leaves do warp a little bit, and that's not so good. But yeah, drag cars are built with solid axle for a reason. Not only are they sturdy and support lots of load coming down the rear as soon as the car does do some wheelies, but also, of course, that they are connected, and thus you, in general, have better grip on both ends. As this list is super long, I will jump around a little bit, or jump over a few items. Well, the others, of course, you can read on screen, so go ahead and do that. But yes, the driven axle should be affecting engineering time for suspension. So if you have a rear-wheel drive car, then whatever suspension you put on the rear should be more complex to engineer. And I think that would be a 50% penalty for engineering time for that suspension type. So a little more thought for you to put in there. We will have to make a big revamp of the steering behavior and how front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive and everything in between affects that. So that will be looked at quite closely. And at the same time, we are going to fix the completely broken all-wheel drive grip calculation. Because currently you have all-wheel drive grip when you have set your all-wheel drive to like 99% rear. And that really should not be the case. Obviously, that is completely messed up. Oh yeah, this one is really interesting too. Pickups versus vans. And something quite a few of you have been pointing out. There is no real place for pickups currently, but we will change that. Pickups will be your mainstay utility vehicle, while vans are much more made for the delivery segments, of course. And as such, we are going to introduce a pickup flag for the cars, and the utility calculations will be looking at that and be very appreciative of this kind of new flag. Yes, another little thing that is more cosmetic than anything else, but I think it adds to the immersion, and many people have been requesting that. Or rather, many people have been requesting, like, we want to change individual gear ratios. As in, what I hear when you say that is, give me all the rope to hang myself with, because I have no clue what I'm doing, and this is awesome. Well, I can appreciate that to some degree, but nah, we had individual gear ratios once when we had the gearbox designer as a separate designer in the game. That was a long time ago, and it played terribly It was so awful, so we got rid of it. And yes, so you're not going to set individual ratios, but we are going to show them to you now. And I think that is a somewhat reasonable compromise. It adds a little bit of flavor to the game, and you can compare your ratios to real life. Also, you wouldn't want to set your own gear ratios, because then what happens if you change tire size? All of a sudden your gears are messed up, and it was just terrible. Okay, so another new thing, torque steer, yay! The next item here I'm going to talk about quickly is the brake fade. Brake fade will be rebalanced such that drivability and sportiness are affected differently, like currently utility is already being affected differently, as the brake fade calculations for utility are done with a lot of weight included in the car. And I think the drivability calculations for the brake fade will be something like 100 kilometers to 0 and repeat and repeat and repeat, while the sportiness calculations will be top speed to 0 and repeat and repeat and repeat. So that if you're building a really high-powered sports car with lots of top speed, then you will want to have larger brakes, because your sportiness-based brake fade will be through the roof, while your drivability-based brake fade will be all fine. Speaking of brake fade, I think brake cooling definitely needs to be revisited and made a little better. So why not have it straight up reduce a percentage of your brake fade? Like a slider at the bottom reduces nothing and costs you nothing. Slider at the top costs you 6 months of engineering time and reduces brake fade by 5%. Makes sense, and there's a direct correlation there, so it's very easy to implement, and I think that makes more sense than the currently very useless and very expensive slider. Oh yeah, this item is really important for everyone who has played the campaign. Yes, if you have tech pool and you unlock different entertainment and safety packages, then you usually end up in a situation where you would like to select the one that has just become outdated, because you don't want to incur the large engineering time and such for the new item, which just was unlocked but still is in the future effectively. So yeah, we are going to look into there are always 2 more slots, at least for the that's for the entertainment packages. There are 2 slots empty at all times, at least. And that means that we probably can show the 2 items that just recently became outdated, so that you can still select them. And yeah, I think that's a good compromise there, which doesn't break any kind of existing mechanics. Overall weight progression seems to be slightly off. Overall cars seem to be about 10%-ish too heavy, and large cars seem to be about right. So yeah, we are going to tinker with the weight progressions of things so that they closer resemble reality. And yeah, small cars I think suffer currently a lot. They are way too heavy. Oh yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one people have been asking for since like 5 years ago. And that is, well, not 5 years ago, there was no car designer back then, but for a long time. And that is radial versus cross-ply tires and their effect on utility and stuff, and drivability and sportiness. Getting maximum grip at, what is it? Some 10-degree slip angle or something crazy. Yeah, so we will be expanding the tire selection there with a list box where you select either cross-ply or radial, and that will also make the maximum tire profile progression a lot more realistic. There are also some big changes coming to utility and practicality in their calculations. I'm not going into that anymore today, because this video will be massive as is. And yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Also, suspensions are getting a complete overhaul. But anyway, the utility will have to depend on how stiff you make your, especially rear suspension, to get more load capacity, and all that kind of neat stuff will be coming out of the new suspension calculations. Yeah, another final thing I quickly wanted to mention is that in the next big update, definitely we're going to make it such that the chassis quality year or body quality year, we're not quite sure which one to choose, as I'm not even sure which one we currently have. I'm sure we have chassis quality, but I'm not sure if we still have body quality anywhere. But anyway, yes, that quality should unlock you car bodies early, just like TechPool does for other items. And in that way you can start designing your car at a point which allows you to get the car out before the actual age penalty kicks in for the car. Now, if you have a nice design team with like +5 quality there, you get it 5 years early to unlock that body style, and your engineering time takes, let's say, 4 years for that car. So yeah, you will have a new car on the market which looks new as well, not 5 years old. Alright, that is a massive list of changes to the game. I expect this to take about 2 to 3 weeks to implement, and yeah, you haven't seen everything yet. I will show you in the next few little dev updates how all this is going. I'll probably show you some changes in-game then, and all that good stuff we are working on. For now, that should suffice, and I hope you enjoyed, and see you guys next time!